So carrying on with the atmospheric landscapes project, and I just quite like this image, so I've kept with this. That's the watercolour version, and I've got one version that I'm trying in oils, which is this one, and this one's acrylic. So I'm going to do a little bit of both these two. So this was it's from a photograph I took of the estuary, Thorpe Bay sort of area near where I live, quite a few years ago. Let's do a little bit more of that. Just to mention, any of you that haven't noticed the emails can have a little summer break. So the last session, our last session here will be the 15th of July, and we'll come back on the 19th of August. So it'll be about a month off. I'll probably have another little break in September, because I do find the classes get a bit quiet in September, so I might have another break then. I just thought.
And the 11th of August is the start?
19th of August is the start, yeah. So the 15th of July is our last session, then we'll start back on the 19th. So it's about a month in between when we're here, so I'll just swap that around.
Oh, sorry.
Yep.
What was that?
It's all right, going back up. There you go.
Oh, no, right, thank you.
Yeah. It's on the emails as well. So this I've got two versions of this. This one's going to be the acrylic one, and this is what I find more of a struggle, to be honest. I find the acrylic paint is nowhere near as powerful as the oil paint, and also I find it really difficult with this sort of subject where you want kind of soft blends. I do find that quite tricky. One way that I've been experimenting with is using an acrylic medium, and you can even mix that in with the paint, or sometimes I'll just paint a little bit on, say maybe paint maybe a bit over here. So if I want to soften, yeah, I'll do a little bit over here because I want to get a nice soft line there. So sometimes, I sometimes do this with oil paints as well. So if I'm working on a painting and it's all dry, and I want it to look like the paint is just one layer of wet paint blended into wet paint, quite often I will paint some medium on anyway. So that's quite nice. I find that quite a nice way to work. So this is acrylic matte medium, and you can get something similar in oil paint. And then what you can do then is get a brush. So anything like these slightly lighter bits, a mix of white and a little bit of raw sienna together. So I want to get this kind of nice sort of lightish edge, but I want it to look a little bit softer, so that feels like it's blending in. So I know some people just do this with the water, so that is possible to perhaps use water, but it will actually keep the strength of the paint if you use a medium. With acrylics, if you water it down too much, there's a danger of the paint layer not adhering properly. So something like that there. So carrying around there, and around here it's a bit easier here because I can just go straight in with the white areas here. And actually, if I paint a little bit of medium around here, so I can blend it into that area. So there it's very bright, but it just wants to soften out a little bit here. So yeah, that's working quite nicely. Just sort of get a softer edge there. And then back to the stronger paint there. And again here I want it to get that nice sort of sun flare look. Again, dampen that a little bit. Maybe a tiny bit of red in with it. The red's working, that's it. And then that will go slightly sort of blended and softened out in that respect. So as I say, I don't find it paint to be quite as strong as the oil, but it's not too bad. Can kind of work the way across there. Okay, so that's the acrylic version. I'll do a little bit of the oils. So these are the water mixed with oils, and I've got a set here. If anybody hasn't got water mixed with oils and wants to try them, I've got these, which ones that Maggie brought in. She didn't like the smell of those. And I'm also trying out these ones. So these are ones I bought from CY. These are quite a lot cheaper, so I'm just trying these out to see what I think. And I think so far they're not too bad. Again, just wash my brush, change the palette over. Now, these I find much nicer paint, much stronger paint. This is actually a little bit older. I put these out last week, so it's been sitting in the palette for a little while. So I can kind of blend in these colours for the darker. You can use medium, or you can soften them out with white a little bit. I quite often just paint them the consistency that they come out of the tube, really. And what I did with this one, so I just did a very light underpainting, very quickly dried quite quickly, so that I could see where I wanted to put the main clouds. So I can have some darker clouds, just mixture of blues and browns and reds to get the colours that I want. I think with colour mixing, I find if you just start with a couple of colours, a couple of each of the primary colours, so 2 blues, 2 reds, 2 yellows, that's always a good place to start. That's some of the darks in, and then I'll pop some of these lighter greys in as well. So whatever I've got on my brush, I can just make a little bit lighter, and then they can go in between. And again, I can soften the paint out just with the brush actually, at the edges. So, and that to me is easier. I get more, it's a kind of creamier sort of paint. I get a nice, softly blended edge. Sometimes you end up picking a bit of the colour up underneath, but you just have to wipe your brush, and then again I can soften that edge a little bit. Another alternative is to you get these brushes, fan brushes, and I think the idea of these is to just sort of soften edges out a little bit like that. So that can work quite nicely. This one is a bristle one, and I actually find those quite good. You can get some that are for softer, these nylon ones, but I think I actually prefer the bristle. These ones, I find that once they get wet, all the hairs just stick together. So, but yeah, you get more of a streaky look of those. But they're quite nice for creating soft edges, and would work. It should work with the acrylics as well, if you're quick, or if you use the medium, but certainly work nicely with oils.
So does the medium keep the paint liquid on the canvas longer than with acrylics?
Yeah, with the acrylics, yeah, it will keep it a little bit wetter longer. Yeah. But it's also you've got a chance to sort of paint into a wet surface. Yeah. Just get the acrylic one back in a minute. So what I find is it very quickly dries. So if I just went in straight with the paint, mix your yellow and whitey colour. If I went straight in with that, you tend to get this sort of drier brush mark look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's what I was finding last week with the water. It was very difficult to get rid of the brush marks.
Yeah.
And you said about that, and I can see how that makes a difference.
So, I mean, I've got that. This is Jackson's acrylic fluid matte medium. So if anyone wants to try it, I've got those there. And to be honest, I don't do a lot of acrylic. I mostly do my acrylics in here, the demos. As I say, the oils I think are an easier medium to use, more satisfying. Because I find that even with the medium, it's still quite a challenge to get softer blends. But it does help, and I have managed to do a couple of pictures, acrylic paintings, where I've used the medium, painted it on, and painted wet paint into it. Or just used it.
Expensive.
I can't remember. It depends where you buy stuff, really. I pretty much get all my materials from Jackson's themselves anyway. So this is like their own brand, but Jackson's are as good at places anyway. Sort of online place. I can't remember, to be honest, how much it is. This was I think Winter and Newton one. I don't know where it's the label's gone, but that's a glossy one. Yeah, I think try it and see if you like it first. Try this and see if you find it useful. That's the gloss one if you want to try that. The other ones you can get are more, this is like an impasto one, so it's like thicker if you wanted textures, so that's another way of creating interest. You sort of get some sort of textured marks. So
It's just sort of like a very minute amount you have to use to blend it in.
yeah, you don't need a great deal. No, not for that. No. I mean, I've just got a little bit out in the coffee jar lid,
Right.
and then just painted a bit on. Yeah. It's worth it. Yeah, if you're fancy experimenting with it, see what you think. Try it and see. Rather than not shouting, spending whatever it's 10, 15 quid or whatever it is for a part. I don't know how much it is. Try it, see if you find it useful.
Okay.
Right. Okay.